Here's the second part of the Tucker Carlson video. Look at the original title up top. It says, "Is China too strong to criticize?" I have another question. Is Tucker stupid, or is he purposely confusing China instead of Israel? That's what this video is about. And I'm going to skirt around the terms of service from YouTube, so fingers crossed nothing happens. And I'm also going to make a vow that this will be the last Tucker Carlson video for a while. However, there's still a necessity there because there are people in this community that are tricked, hoodwinked, bamboozled, fooled, whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean that they are fools. What it means is Tucker is good at what he does. Let's get into the video.
First, for 3 years, our entire professional class hectored us about the overweening threat we supposedly faced from Russia. Russia, you remember, had somehow hacked American democracy during the 2016 presidential campaign. Russian agents had infiltrated our government at the highest levels. Honorable former naval officers, people who seemed honorable anyway, like Carter Page, were in fact secret stooges of Vladimir Putin's, and they were working toward diabolical ends with political consultants like Roger Stone. It was all hiding in plain sight, and it was working. Forget Mexico or Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or many other countries. It was Russia, more than any other place, that threatened America's sovereignty, that was actually in control of our foreign policy. That's the story they told us. None of it was ever plausible. In fact, it was completely absurd. It was obviously absurd. There was never any evidence that it was true, but they kept saying it day after tiresome day until it stuck. Until every single CNN viewer, every single PBS donor, every subscriber to the New Yorker magazine believed it as a matter of religious faith. Russia hacked our democracy. It was almost on their tote bags. It was their mantra.
The Russians exploited a massive backdoor into the foundation of our democracy.
Moscow's attack on American democracy.
The work by Russian agents to try to destabilize American democracy.
It's everything you need to know about the threat to our democracy.
You have Republicans who are silent and seemingly okay with this kind of attack on our democracy.
There is no question that Russia attacked us.
Or attacks, ladies and gentlemen, on our Constitution.
Attack on the integrity of our elections.
An attack on our democracy.
The first time we've had an adversary attack us that we have not responded.
These people brandishing their silly credentials like we have a moral obligation to listen to them because they know what they're talking about. They were fools reading their stupid talking points.
Well, guess what, Tucker? Everything that you just said about all of those liberal Democrats and how they just kept hammering it in, hammering Russia, Russia, Russia. Conservatives, Republicans, and Zionists are doing the exact same thing with China. Don't believe me? Well, guess what? I can do the same thing you just did.
Hard to believe. After China's lies and deceit about the coronavirus, the American public, I think, is finally beginning to get it. They're seeing the communist nation for what it is, an enemy of the United States and of free people everywhere.
A systematic decision by many of our country's most powerful leaders to sell out America to China.
The Trump administration is making efforts now to hold China accountable.
Most American of all sports, professional basketball, a game literally invented in a gym in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Joining me now is Nikki Haley.
The next move is to sanction China until they let us go into China.
So why shouldn't we treat China the same way?
We absolutely should treat China the same way.
Our dependence on China and holding its communist government accountable for its mishandling and deception in the early days of the coronavirus.
About the fact that China is our #1 national security threat.
And Trump shows no signs of backing off his trade war with China.
In Bloomberg's China cabinet,
What percent of his fortune came from cutting deals with the dictatorship in China?
This full-blown global crisis might have been prevented, or at least mitigated, if not for the corrupt actions of the communist Chinese government.
What share of the money he's going to spend to try to buy the presidency actually came from China?
So, Niall, I speak as an American. I am furious
at China.
Unwittingly echoing what is a Chinese propaganda talking point.
China is, in my judgment, the single greatest geopolitical threat the United States faces over the next century.
This is about the fact that China is our #1 national security threat.
Secondly, when it comes to propaganda, I'm introducing legislation called the Script Act that is focused on Hollywood. Hollywood, far too often, lets China, the Chinese Communist government, censor American films.
Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's
China.
racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why.
They are increasing their military, and that needs to put our military on notice.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
They've been stealing intellectual property from the very beginning. And
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
they have created a surveillance state. Literally, their people don't know what's going on in the rest of the world unless China approves it.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
They have 1 million minorities in concentration camps, making them change their names, change their religion and the way they do things.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Reading their stupid talking points again and again like they were real, but they were doing it for a reason. The beauty of the Russia fable was that it allowed these people, our ruling class, to ignore the huge number of actual problems the United States faced.
Again, I can say the exact same thing. The beauty of the China fable is so it misdirects everyone from really what's going on. Just the exact same way that when liberal Democrats point and say, Russia, Russia, Russia only, what do we get in return? Partisanship. When liberals say Russia, we get conservatives to stick up for Russia. When conservatives say China, liberals stick up for China. Then it becomes partisan. They're both adversaries, Russia and China. But now that it's partisan, it's never going to go anywhere. But they all leave out the head of the triangle. Who's the head of the triangle? The real people that you're not allowed to talk about. I will let the man, the myth, the legend himself explain it to you. None other than Johnny Gat.
This video will be about China's Belt and Road Initiative, formerly known as One Belt, One Road. I'll be reading excerpts from the book Israel and China, From Silk Road to Innovation Highway, written by Lionel Friedfield and Philippe Matudi. To understand Israel's role in the Belt and Road Initiative, first you have to understand Jewish history in Asia. The creation of the Silk Road during China's Han Dynasty from 206 BCE to 220 CE had a tremendous impact on international trade and communication between Eastern and Western countries. During this golden age, various merchandise including silk, spices, jewelry, and perfumes was exchanged on the Silk Road. Having begun to settle alongside this mercantile set of roads, Jewish traders were at the forefront of such activity. Now let's fast forward to today. Israel is often mistakenly believed to be located in the Middle East. In fact, it is situated geographically in the Asian continent, precisely in Western Asia on the southeastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea. A core part of Asia with a strategic location, it has long enjoyed a preferential relationship with Asian countries. China's One Belt, One Road strategy, announced by Chinese President Xi Jinping at the end of 2013, aims to create infrastructure links and commercial routes between China and the Middle East, Europe, and Africa via an overland belt and a maritime road. Within this framework, China perceives Israel as an excellent trade hub. The future Eilat railway line will serve as a land bridge, linking the Red Sea from the port of Eilat to the Mediterranean Sea from the port of Ashdod, bypassing the Suez Canal. This new infrastructure will enable Israel to provide China with direct access to European, African, and Middle Eastern markets. We expect Israel's and China's partnership in all areas of infrastructure, ports, roads, cargo, railways, to continue to advance over the next 50 years. This partnership will play a vital role in improving Israel's geopolitical stability and securing China's commercial trade routes between the Far East, Europe, and Africa. China needs Israel to secure European, African, and Middle Eastern trade routes so that they can become the leading economic power. In return, Israel benefits greatly being the middleman in all of these transactions. China is on pace to overtake the US as the biggest investor in Israel. In 2016, Chinese investment in Israel reached a record US $16.5 billion. Li Keqiang, Asia's wealthiest individual with an estimated net worth of US $33.5 billion in 2015, is a major investor in Israel. His venture capital arm, Horizon Ventures, has been one of the most active VCs in Israel for the past few years, acknowledged as the most active investor in 2013 and second most in 2012. Horizon Ventures focuses on disruptive technologies. It has invested in many of Israel's leading innovative companies, such as Waze, VX, Tipa, and Kaima. In one of my past videos, we got into Amir Gad, an Israeli scientist who stole NASA rocket secrets from Caltech, then went back to work at Technion. Well, Technion has a technology transfer bureau known as T3, where they commercialize in-house research to investors. Problem is, some of their research is not actually in-house. Amir's case proves that some of it is stolen from the US, then re-engineered and sold off to Chinese investors such as Li Keqiang. Li donated US $130 million to the Technion Institute of Technology in 2013 through the Li Keqiang Foundation. This donation is the largest ever made to the Technion and one of the largest made to any Israeli academic institution. Israel has been stealing Western technology and selling it to Russia and China for decades. If anyone is new to this issue, there is ample evidence in my documentary, Putin, Bibi, and the Bolsheviks. Russia and China want a desirable world order where most countries rely on them instead of the US. It's in their best interest to pursue that goal. Problem here is that Israel is helping them accomplish that goal while simultaneously claiming to be America's greatest ally. While the US and China are enemies, Israel is forging closer ties with China, and Bibi has even stated that Israel and China are a match made in heaven. Yet he lashes out at Obama for making a deal with Iran. This is unbelievable hypocrisy. He wants the US to remain loyal to Israel, meanwhile Israel is not loyal to the US at all. Here's an article from the Jerusalem Post titled, Israel and the Unexpected New World Order. Quote, geographically, Israel is just off-center. Why then is it treated with such respect by the likes of Russia and China? The answer to that is the Belt and Road Initiative, which will take an estimated $7.5 trillion to develop. This project consists of high-speed railways and ports connecting China to at least 75 other countries. This new Silk Road would enable China to overtake the US as the leading economic power. Again, China needs Israel to secure those trade routes, and in return, Israel could gain a degree of wealth not seen since the days of King Solomon. This 2017 article also states, economists worry that China's ambition could trigger a global economic collapse, a currency collapse specifically. Maybe BRICS and One Belt One Road don't care. A global currency collapse might be seen as a way to wipe the slate clean of nation-based currencies, especially the US dollar. Interesting. Because a lot of Zionist politicians are attacking China for the coronavirus, a lot of people online believe that these politicians are doing it to deflect attention away from Israel's possible role in the coronavirus. That may very well be the case. My issue is that the Soviet propagandists are using that to flood the internet with disinformation, claiming that Israel is against China, and people are falling for it. Someone commented in one of my videos, quote, it's obvious the coronavirus is a plot by Zionist neocons running the US regime in Washington, D.C. against China's new Silk Road. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever read. Why would Israel want to sabotage China's new Silk Road when they are the ones being paid billions upon billions of dollars to help it grow? As we went into earlier, Zionists have helped build China and Hong Kong into the economic powerhouses that they are today. The Chinese elite are not stupid. They know exactly who controls the politicians in the US. So when you see Zionist politicians attacking China for the coronavirus, ask yourself, why isn't China firing back at Israel? Not once has China criticized Israel during this entire conflict. Instead, they're firing back at America and going along with whatever plan Israel has in store. That plan could very well be war, but right now it's too early to tell.
That gives you a better understanding of what exactly is going on with all of this. As much as Fox News talks about China, 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 how come they will never, ever mention the Belt and Road Initiative? Not once will they ever talk about it. You know why? Because the people who really run stuff won't allow it.
Who benefited from this? Well, the people who thought it up. But nobody benefited more than the Chinese government. While our leaders in Washington wasted literally years accusing each other of working for Putin, China grew more powerful. It grew closer to replacing the United States as the world's dominant nation. By the time this version of coronavirus spread west from Wuhan, China was calling many of the shots internationally.
Every single time he says China, he's covering for Israel. Well, get ready, buckle up, because this is where Tucker goes full shill. And remember, this guy is not ignorant, even though I asked that question to start off with. Tucker is a very intelligent man. He knows exactly what he's doing. Remember, every time he says China or Chinese, he's covering for Israel or the people we're not allowed to talk about.
Health Organization. China's tentacles extend almost everywhere in our society. The Chinese government is now deeply enmeshed in higher education in this country. It's not an overstatement. A number of university professors, including one today, have been arrested for spying on behalf of Beijing. Literally spies on campus. Tenured spies. China has profound influence in Hollywood. You know that. In professional sports, we saw that last year. And in corporate America, up and down the chain. The Chinese own huge amounts of real estate throughout this country, one of the reasons your kids can't afford to live in our cities. All of this has changed our lives in profound ways, but all of it happened with very little public notice. Why? Because the people making it possible didn't want to advertise it. They were getting very rich from it. Every ambitious climber in corporate America knows the rules now. Don't offend Beijing, and you could be rewarded. The head of Disney's streaming service just left to become CEO of TikTok. That's a Chinese company. That may appall you, but in corporate America, many are envious. They wish they were him. Washington hasn't been immune to this either. China's influence is everywhere in the capital city. Former Senator Joe Lieberman lobbies for China now. Hard to believe, isn't it? Samir Jain was a top cybersecurity official for the Obama administration. Now he lobbies for Huawei. And those are just a couple of the very few who followed the law and actually registered under FARA as foreign lobbyists. Hunter Biden never bothered to do that. Biden worked hard to sell his access to politicians in Washington, presumably his father, the vice president, chief among them, to investors who were getting rich in China. It was never a secret. Many people in Washington knew exactly what Hunter Biden was doing, and they didn't say anything to anybody. Why? Because it didn't seem weird to them. It wasn't strange. So many other well-connected people were doing the same thing, selling access to elected officials in Washington to the Chinese. Nancy Pelosi still doesn't understand why any of this is a big deal.
From Israel's founding through the present day, our pledge remains the same. Israel and America are connected now and forever. We will never allow anyone to make Israel a wedge issue. That pledge is proudly honored in this Congress, where support for Israel remains ironclad and bipartisan. The U.S.-Israel relationship is special and strong because it is rooted in our shared values. and our shared interest, including our interest in stability and in enduring peace in the region and the world. Assistance to Israel is vital, and it's not going anywhere, because if you care about American security, you must care about Israel's security.
Yeah, it's a diversion. How many antibiotics do we make in this country in the middle of a pandemic? Let's see, 0, none. All in China, just a diversion. When you watch something like Pelosi's statement, a terrifying thought creeps up from the back of your mind. Is China now too strong to criticize? Is our only option to submit?
So ridiculous.